Look at all these rumors surrounding the Texans every day. Listen, does current GM Nick Caserio need some time to get away from this franchise? Cody and I discussed the rumors surrounding Nick Caserio that he could be gone after the draft, and the Texans need to lock in a quarterback at number 2. The question is, will they?
And to tie it all in, we want to develop a great team here that we can deliver wins to the city of Houston. We want to deliver a championship here to the city of Houston, and that's what it'll be about.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Thursday episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Texan podcast on YouTube and all of the major podcasting platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I'm John Hickman, but of course, I'm joined by Sports Illustrated's own and Texan Houston Rocket credential media member Cody Davis. And today's show, D'Amico Ryan's press conference. We will discuss that. That was a press conference that took place on Tuesday. I think there are some important details that were shared that we should bring forth. But there's no way we can get started with today's show without giving and diving into the hottest and maybe the most confusing topic, maybe just not of the week, of the offseason so far, and that is, will Nick Caserio leave the Texans after the draft and possibility, not drafting a quarterback at the number 2 overall pick. Now, this all started with a Mike Lombardi bombshell on the GM Shuffle podcast, I believe, where he stated he's not sure CJ Stroud is a lock at 2 if he's available, going as far as saying he can come off as challenging to a coach. And the vibe around Stroud is he isn't an easy guy to coach. Another hot topic was brought up on the GM Shuffle Lombardi podcast, where he states there's a longer game being played in Houston. I think there will be some organizational changes in Houston after the draft. I'm not saying people will be fired, but organizationally, things will be shifted. Matt Miller, let's continue. It's a long road here. Matt Miller was on the Adam Schefter podcast and said the Texans gave Will Anderson a flawless grade after his visit, and he's on the top of the Houston Texans board. So that's something that I can't wait to discuss with you guys. That's an inside source on that. Cody, let's start with discussing Nick Caserio. And as of right now, I feel like this is probably more of a bombshell. Chances that Nick leaves after the draft. I've never really heard that a GM who survived Black Monday, survived 3 head coaches now with D'Amico Ryans, survived back-to-back 4-3 win seasons, survived messing up on the number 1 overall pick because of how the last game of the year played out against the Colts, survives all of that, gets through offseason, gets through free agency.
And help build a team, by the way. Help build a team.
And then up and say, you know what? I think I need to get out of here. Cody, let's talk about that.
John, I refuse to believe that. And the one thing, you know me, I always try to make sense out of everything, you know, and the one thing that I keep going back to is the day after Lovie Smith got fired. We had an opportunity to talk to Nick Caserio in a press conference. And remember, I came on this show and I told you guys how different Nick Caserio's demeanor has changed. Not only that, I was told by a couple of people that the McNairs finally stepped up and started to take more control of their organization. With all that being said, John, when you go back and you take a look at the last 2 seasons, Nick Caserio tried to control everything. And yes, I know there's also the Jack Easterby side of things that you gotta take into consideration at the moment as well. However, Nick Caserio is the one guy who is still here. He's a control freak. It's the reason why he did not work with Lovie Smith, and it's part of the reason why he did not work with David Culley. And say what you want about David Culley, but towards the end of his coaching tenure, let's say around Thanksgiving, he started taking more of an initiative that you wanted to see out of your head coach. And that's part of the reason why they end up winning what? 2 of their last 3-4 games towards the end of that season. So you look at that, and the one thing that I noticed about Nick Caserio was the fact that he said that he was going to take a step back and let the McNairs do McNair things. He was going to focus on general manager type of things, and he was going to let whoever that new head coach come in and do coaches things. Now we are getting these conflicting reports, these conflicting rumors on
2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, literally 2 weeks away from the draft of how the Texans want Will Anderson. No, the Texans don't want CJ. If it's not Bryce Young, it's either Bryce Young or Bus or whatever the case might be. They're going to trade down and all of this other stuff. I look at this from a standpoint that Nick Caserio is still trying to control the narrative or the main narrative of what the Houston Texans are going to do and should do. Because at the end of the day, he is somewhat of a control freak, if we're just keeping it 100% honest. Now, you have a head coach who has some oomph behind his name. You have a head coach who is bringing credibility to this organization. You have a head coach who is not going to let you do what you want as a general manager like you did at the start of David Culley's tenure. And part of the reason why you and Lovie Smith has never worked out.
And I would like to add on top of that, that could be part of the reason why the Houston Texans started the free agency period so slow.
Exactly. And I was going to get to that. Now, John, I just look at this from a standpoint. When I go back to that press conference, Nick Caserio was very vulnerable about saying that if he doesn't feel he is the right guy for this job, he will be willing to step down, and vice versa. If the McNairs feel like he isn't the right guy for the job, he will understand it and they will go their separate ways. Everything that has been taking place or potentially been taking place over the last couple of weeks lets me know that regardless of what is going on, Nick Caserio is still trying to control the narrative, and the McNairs, and now you got to add in DeMeco Ryans, they just not taking it anymore.
Chad Forbes, this was March 3rd, 2021. Chad Forbes tweeted, Nick realized quickly he signed up for a terrible situation with the Texans. No ties to the area, had so many better opportunities over the years, bad ownership, lack of draft capital, only appeal the quarterback and money. He finished that statement, that tweet, by saying, bet Nick is back in New England by 2023. Now, to go against that tweet, I do think that everything that he inherited when he first got to Houston is no longer the case. Listen, my thoughts about this right now is, at that press conference after the Week 18 loss, the Week 18 win, over the Colts, what you just said, Cody came out and said, if I'm not the right guy, he understands he'll step down. The Texans are operating as one of the few teams in the NFL without an official general manager. Now, we hear, like Lombardi said, that there may be some organizational changes. I don't necessarily think, this is just me thinking, I don't necessarily think it'll be Nick stepping down. I think that Houston will bring in an assistant general manager to kind of help smooth things out between the two sides. Because I do believe, like John McClain reported, I do believe the McNairs are happy with Nick Caserio, at least from a working relationship. And I do think that this is the year that, especially, this is why you keep them, right? This is the year where you see if their working relationship pays off to actual wins or not. But I can see there being friction, right? So I want to continue by saying that an assistant general manager that is more favorable to DeMeco can help come in and appease the desires of your new head coach, DeMeco Ryans. The conversation is pointing to that front office shakeup. I also want to continue with, I do believe that there is some smoke. Some of that smoke could be from Nick Caserio not being happy with no longer having the one and only final say-so. Right?
Exactly.
This isn't a David Culley situation, and this is why at the press conference with Lovie Smith, you heard them on multiple occasions talk about throughout the season, offseason, they don't see eye to eye philosophically. And so You're not going to win that battle when you just came off 2 coaches, 7 wins in 2 years, and you helped fumble the number 1 overall pick, which is why you're in this position in the first place of whether or not you're going to go Bryce CJ, because you have the opportunity to control your own destiny. That's number 1. Number 2 is if, in fact, Nick Caserio will be out, again, it's to his own merit of not being able to get out of the way. The only way I see a general manager who was already on his last leg get fired after the draft is if he and the coach aren't on the same page. And until this point, I've heard nothing to indicate otherwise. And I find it strange that the combination, after a combination of CJ Stroud and Will Anderson's top 30 visit, now we're getting this information coming out that there could be friction about what's going on and there could be a front office change.
I want to add this. On the same day Bryce Young was in Houston.
And the same day Bryce Young was in Houston, they also got some of the other players back in the building. So all of this leads me to, if this does happen, it goes back to Black Monday. You move on from Caserio once the radar was on DeMeco Ryans. That will be a bad look for the McNairs. And this is from a credible source. The talk of Caserio being out has been a discussion in the NRG off 16 and Kirby. That's been a discussion for a couple of weeks now. So all of this could be smoke. However, I was informed from a credible source that Houston will absolutely address the quarterback in this draft. Maybe not at 2. We'll see how that plays out. Again, Ryans is leaning heavily towards Will Anderson at number 2 overall. I'm giving you guys this information, right? This is also from a source that DeMeco Ryans, who graded a prospect as nearly flawless, who, by the way, went to his alma mater, Alabama. And if you can't get the other guy from your alma mater from Alabama, well, why did I go get the next best thing, right? In terms of Will Anderson, not the quarterback position, of course. But he is leaning heavily towards Will Anderson with the number 2 overall pick. And Nick probably doesn't want to risk his career on a edge rusher when his team desperately needs a quarterback. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where the smoke is actually coming from. Nick cannot afford to miss out on a quarterback. And the friction is DeMeco Ryans, who just got to Houston, may be looking at him and saying, listen, man, you had your time to do what you wanted to do. You failed miserably, which is why I'm here now. And the way I want to build my team is how I want to build my team. And he may want to build his team with Will Anderson with the number 2 overall pick, guys. Looking for a delicious snack but don't want all of the sugar and calories? Then you need the best tasting protein bar on the market, Built. You got to try one of these. Great flavors covered in 100% dark chocolate, real dark chocolate. Super delicious. They come in flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. My personal favorite is the churro. I've heard a lot of people say they like the peanut butter brownies. I'm not really sure how they do it, but they're able to make this delicious bar that's only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Can't beat that. If you're close to a Sam's Club or a Walmart, go ahead and run in and grab your box. You can also check them out at built.com as well. Order today. And if you tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that Locked On Texans told you about them, go ahead and let us know how y'all like them in the comment section. Can't wait to hear it again. You can run into your local Walmart or Sam's Club today to pick up your box. Amazing flavors highlighted by the churro, in my personal opinion. You got other flavors like the peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, and much more. Check out a Built Bar today. Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. What a crazy week for the Houston Texans. 2 weeks away from the draft. And it's I'm gonna tell you why this is funny to me. And people are texting me all the time, ladies and gentlemen, right? Before we get back to the show. Everybody's thought process is when the obvious right decision is there.
They can't do this again, John.
Why?
They can't do
Are
this
the
again.
Texans flirting with the most obvious wrong decision that, of course, fans believe, and I will put myself in that, category, the wrong decision to make, Cody. So that leads me to the press conference that was held on Tuesday. During that press conference, they had 7 questions, at least 7 questions surrounding the quarterback position or what the Texans will do with the number 2 overall pick after discussing the issues of the front office. How big of a mistake would it be for Houston to pass on CJ Stroud if he is available at 2? We are hearing throughout the NFL world that the Panthers really do like Bryce Young. So if CJ is available at 2, if the Houston passes on CJ Stroud, who again has been rumored to not be the Texans' top choice, ironically, after meeting with Stroud last week, how bad of a decision would that be? I don't know. Let's take a trip back 17 years
Don't
ago.
Don't do it.
Well, please, let's talk about that decision that it would be for the Houston Texans to pass upon.
It would be a horrible decision, John, because first and foremost, let me just say this, and I don't care who comes at me in the comments, who's going to tweet at me, who's going to DM me. If DeMeco Ryans is pushing to take Will Anderson at number 2, or if DeMeco Ryans isn't sold on CJ and he's pushing the organization away from that idea, I will go on a limb and say that the Houston Texans made a mistake by making DeMeco Ryans their new head coach. And I say that because first and foremost,
that's premature, man. I think so.
Not only would it be a mistake, but it also proves that the Texans are okay at being mediocre. Let's put it like what it is. There are a lot of people who did not want to accept the fact that the Houston Texans could draft a franchise quarterback this year because they are scarred. And this will be a huge mistake. Now, with that being said, when I try to make sense of the Texans trying to pass up on the idea of drafting CJ, I look at it like this. First and foremost, and I do believe this might be the most obvious answer, is the fact that they're just using their poker face. They know what they want to do. They know they need a quarterback, and it's all for a game. Maybe they're trying to trick the Arizona Cardinals into giving up something to trade up to that number 2 overall pick so they can get Will Anderson. And that makes a lot of sense because I was told Arizona really likes Will Anderson. Okay, I understand it. And you also got to keep in mind that both Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans, they talked about exploring several possibilities in order to rebuild this roster.
Optionality, flexibility has been 2 words we've heard throughout the offseason.
Exactly. And they talked about that a lot. So, okay, I get it. I understand it. However, John, if by any chance they pass up on CJ and they don't take a quarterback with that number 2 overall pick, and this is no disrespect to Anthony Richardson, Hendon Hooker. I think both of those guys has the potential as of right now to be quality starting quarterback. Hell, I even throw Will Levis in there. You already know how I feel about Will. But they are not CJ and Bryce. They are not CJ. CJ has the potential to be your franchise quarterback for the future, period. So with that being said, if you pass up on CJ, that means that you're going to trade down. John, let's break this draft down as of right now.
Well, I don't think so, because if you don't go CJ, then that means Houston will go Will Anderson with the number 2 overall pick, because Will Anderson is not lasting, I don't think, past Arizona. I don't think so.
No. But here's the thing, though, John. There are talks about the possibility of the Texans trading down. Let's just say that, okay? There's only 2 quarterback needy teams within the top 11 that could possibly trade up to number 2 and get CJ. That's the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. That doesn't make sense. You're not going to give up the number 2 overall pick to trade down for whoever and let your division rival go after a franchise starting quarterback and have him dominate your team for the next 10 years, 2 times a year. Let's say 3 whenever you get back to the opportunity where you're facing that team in the playoffs. And then the biggest issue that I have with this, and which lets me know that this is all poker face at the end of the day, you have 2 quarterbacks on your roster right now. That's Davis Mills.
3. Don't forget EJ Perry.
Oh, EJ Perry. Okay, I'm glad you said EJ Perry. So you have 3 quarterbacks on your roster. Perry, Davis Mills, Case Keenum. I highly doubt Perry will be a part of the 53-man roster. I'm just going ahead and just throw that out there right now, because even if they don't go CJ, people are still saying that they can still walk away from this draft class with a quarterback. And whoever they pick up at any round is going to be better than Perry. Let's just go ahead and throw that in there right now. But here's the next thing. Who's going to be your starting quarterback come week 1 of the 2023 campaign? As of right now, it's Davis Mills, correct? After the season that Davis Mills have, if by any chance they was willing to give Davis Mills another opportunity, you would think that they would have at least added a quarterback in free agency, like a Baker Mayfield. I throw Jameis Winston in here, try to throw some money at Geno Smith, just to create some competition and say, you know what? Let the best man win. And if you didn't want to go that route, you could have traded for Derek Carr. You could have traded for Lamar Jackson. Unfortunately, it seemed like that ship has sailed. But I don't see this organization just all willy-nilly giving Davis Mills the starting role. And he's not going to compete with Case Keenum because DeMeco Ryans already said in his press conference that the reason why they signed Case Keenum was for him to be a veteran in the position group. So when you break all this down, John, nothing makes sense about the Houston Texans passing up on CJ unless it's one or two things. You have the wrong coach in your building once again, or it's just poker face and you're just trying to get something out of nothing. I don't know. This will be probably worse than the whole Vince Young, you taking Mario Williams in 2006. This will be 10 times worse.
And I think this is an opportunity for Houston to be able to get their own version of what the Jags were able to get out of Trevor Lawrence. Got your franchise quarterback who may in the first year may not come in and do great. However, Trevor Lawrence's first year was under Urban Meyer.
But it's Trevor Lawrence. John, as many times as you say on this show, especially during his rookie season, how many times did you say it's Trevor Lawrence? We know what he's going to be when you get him with a competent head coach.
And that's what I'm alluding to. This is the opportunity for Houston to put themselves in that position that the Jacksonville Jaguars has been able to do in their last two seasons with Trevor Lawrence, especially coming into his sophomore year with competent head coach. And I don't see why Houston would want to miss out on that opportunity and possibly get what the Jaguars were able to do in year two, maybe be able to get that in year one. So this is an opportunity for the Houston Texans to get competitive in this division, and it starts with the quarterback position. Again, as I already mentioned, I don't see Nick Caserio risking his career because whether we admit it or not, if this draft is bad and he goes out there and Lovie Smith this draft, he probably will never get another general manager job again. So I don't see him risking his career on a DN when you know your team needs a quarterback. You can't risk it on a DN. You can't risk it on Davis Mills potentially being a starter again, and maybe you draft a quarterback late. I don't think that is worth the risk. And when we look at 7 questions surrounding the quarterback position, one of those he did address Case Keenum, but throughout those questions at different times, DeMeco Ryans dodged them, which is what he's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, I think it's a no-brainer for me. And they could go Will Anderson. And if they go Will Anderson, you've heard me say this on the show before. Listeners and viewers have heard me say this again. If indeed they go Will Anderson, which that's something we need to be prepared for in whatever alternate reality universe, then that is the way that DeMeco Ryans wants to build his team. I'm not going to go as far as saying that is a mistake, that he was a mistake to bring in as a head coach, because he's not. We can't say that, and he hasn't coached the game as a head coach yet. But I will say that that is a decision that I wouldn't agree with. If he believes that in order for his team to be competitive, they got to be able to get physical, which is something that I mentioned before, physical and tough in this division to win it at first, and he believes Will Anderson is the guy, then we have to live with that decision. And then they will still address the quarterback position, no doubt about it. But I believe that you are able to get what the Jags were able to get. And that is a quarterback. I don't even want to say 10 years anymore because I know that's real PTSD for Texas fans. I don't want to put a time frame on it, but at least in a rookie contract, you get a quarterback that can come in and make your team competitive. I don't think it's worth the risk.
But to that notion, John, and I'm glad that you said that, because I heard a lot of people talk about this. It's okay if they go Will Anderson at number 2, and you just give Davis Mills a competition at to be the starting quarterback come week 1 of the 2023 campaign. I get all that. And a lot of people are okay with that because they look at DeMeco Ryans and say, okay, he came from San Francisco where it didn't matter who was under center. San Francisco was always thriving due to their offense. However, DeMeco Ryans is not Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is one of, if not the best offensive-minded coaches in today's game. And I'm glad that you brought up the Jacksonville Jaguars because once again, the Jacksonville Jaguars have one of the best offensive-minded coaches in Doug Peterson. So you don't have that. I understand you got Bobby Slowick. Yes, I've been told Bobby Slowick worked really well with Brock during the time he stepped in after Jimmy G got hurt. But at the end of the day, that isn't Kyle Shanahan. And if they go Will Anderson at number 2, John, I just feel like we're about to go through the whole entire 2010s again to where you have a foundational piece on the defensive side of the ball. Everything is good from the backfield. You know, I'm pretty sure at some point you're going to get yourself a quality top wide receiver. Your defense is going to be damn good because, look, Will Anderson, Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie. Okay, I can get behind that defense. However, if they only had a quarterback, come on, man. Just get you a quarterback now.
The reality of the situation is that has been the Texans' history. So sometimes history repeats.
This is 21 years, and we've been saying, and people have been saying that they only had a quarterback for what? At least 13 years, I want to say they have had a good team, excluding the Deshaun Watson years. And that was only about 3-4 years because he got hurt his rookie season in the well, we already know how the last year worked out. This the poker face. Little Lady Gaga have a song called Poker Face. This is what this is, ladies and gentlemen. I refuse to believe any difference.
Thanks for making Locked On Texans your first listen every day. Now make your second listen. Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, from free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and much more. Join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we close out today's show, more from the press conference that took place on Tuesday. Interesting question that I actually love the response. And I wish we were able to kind of discuss this on the podcast where we had my man Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers, who also covers Pitt. And the basis of that podcast was just late round gems that is coming out of Pitt, the University of Pitt. I asked DeMeco Ryans, when you look at players drafted on day 3 of the NFL draft who are potential roster cuts, what intangibles you are required to have of them as people and not players? He answered that question by saying day 3 guys have to be motivated. That's the makeup of day 3 guys. They have this desire that can't be that can be unmatched, that allows them to unseat guys that are in front of them. That allows them to go on and be very quality players in the NFL. He continued with by saying, what's your drive? What's going to drive you to the edge? Day 3 guys, sometimes they have a chip on their shoulder that just drives them over the top. I love guys who come in with a chip on their shoulders, something to prove. They just work differently. And I think this is, when we talk about number 2, right? Like number 2, we haven't even talked about 12 that much. It's been number 2. But when we get later in the rounds, right? And this is where I think the friction needs to be squashed, because I want to see the minds of Nick Caserio, of DeMeco Ryans work hand in hand to find these late round gems. I am adamant on saying, when I look at who Houston signed in free agency, Dalton Schultz, you bring him back for another year. You try to get a long-term contract worked out with him. Haven't had a top quality tight end since Owen Daniels. Devin Singletary is a player that I wouldn't mind Houston bringing back, right? Sheldon Rankins is another guy. Bring him back. Shaq Mason, I think a deal's going to get done with him at some point. But Houston has signed some players, and it's like, okay, they're good for this year. Their 1 year's nice, but what about the future? And I want to see, of course, they pick number 2, pick 12, 33, third round. I get it. But some of those day 3 players that's coming out in the NFL draft, you may be able to find some of those late round gems in the 4th and the 5th round, maybe 6th, depending on who's available at running back and what their skill set is. So the friction, the smoke, and all of that's going off on 16 and Kirby. You want to see it be put to the side. You want to see these two minds work together in the draft. And then you want to see everything that the McNairs have been trying to bring to light for this franchise, make them more competitive, put fans back in the seats. You want to see all that come to fruition when they put a better team out on the field. So I love that response from D'Amico Ryans when he looked at the day 3 players, because again, you got the Savassier Dennis's, you got the Jay Wards of the world, the Ronnie Hickmans of the world, you got the Nathaniel Dale, Tank Dale, we call him Tank down here. You got those type of players that can come in, and at some point, maybe in year 1, is more so in year 2 and beyond, can be impact players for this roster.
That's the one thing that kind of frustrates me about the potential friction between Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans, because I do feel like that pairing could be really good for this organization. Because say what you want about Nick Caserio, but you already know me. I give Nick Caserio a lot of credit and a lot of praise for his eye of scouting and his eye of just bringing in players through the draft. I mean, look, I understand Davis Mills isn't the quarterback that we thought he was going to be. I understand that Brevin Jordan isn't the tight end that we thought he was going to be. And I understand there's still some questions surrounding Nico Collins and Roy Lopez. However, go back to that, what was that, 2021 draft, and just take a look at how bad the Texans were in that draft in terms of that capital. And they still came away with at least quality players to where even if they are not starters, they can still be rotational players, i.e. Brevin Jordan, i.e.
Could have drafted
Lopez.
St. Brown, by the way. Just throwing it out there.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, look, everybody know the draft is a hit and miss. And unfortunately for this organization, there's a lot of misses. But even with that being said, when you go back and you take a look at last year's draft, there is still a lot of potential that Nick Caserio was able to bring into the draft. And I expect him to do the same again, literally less than 2 weeks. Yeah. And in terms of the young players like a Davis Mills, like a Brevin Jordan, for example, to where we say, man, maybe it's the coaching that they don't have. Now you got a coach in D'Amico Ryans who is known for a developmental coach. Same as Bobby Slowick. Like, you got so many coaches who have a track record of players that they help throughout their careers. And it's just like, if this marriage don't work, it's going to be terrible for this organization.
I'm glad you said that, Cody, because let's be honest really quick. And when we say this, we'll move on. We may have to bring this up again, but
we got to.
If we are being honest, okay, year 1, Davis Mills, Brevin Jordan, Nico Collins, Roy Lopez. I'm missing somebody. I think it's Gary Wallow was in that draft.
Yeah, Gary Wallow.
Davis Mills helped you get to the number 2 overall pick, so that was a bonus for him, but he hasn't worked out. Mm-hmm. Nico Collins traded up for Nico Collins, and if we're being honest,
only because of health, though.
Whether it's health and we have to add in QB play, we still have question marks about Nico Collins. Brevin Jordan is on the outside, I believe, if we're being honest. Roy Lopez is like a foot in, body out player right now. Year 2, Derek Stingley works out. Kenyon Green, question marks, but I think he'll work out. But these are 2 first-round picks. Jalen Petrie, second rounder. He's working out.
Dog.
Damian Pierce and Christian Harris. Those are the later-round picks.
Dogs.
And so there has been hit and misses for Nick Caserio in late rounds. There's also been bad coaching. There's also been terrible coaching staffs. Forgive me. Very bad put together coaching staffs, which has been at the hand of Nick Caserio. Which is why when we saw D'Amico Ryans come in, it wasn't none of that. You do no. You had your chance. I got my guys. And this is why everybody, especially when we look at Shane Day and Bill Lazor, excited about what this team could be on the offensive side of the ball, because they got 2 guys that have been able to help receivers, quarterbacks, the whole nine. So, make sure you guys check us out throughout the week. We got some more guests coming on. I think Cody and I, last sentiments about this is find a way to be able to work with each other professionally and put aside the BS. Make the right decision, the smart decision, and we'll go from there. But whatever the Houston Texans do, we have to, roll with them and roll with the punches, good or bad. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Also subscribe to the Locked On Texan YouTube page under the name, Locked On Texan. Give me a follow, man. Y'all know I lost my page last year, so I'm trying to get my numbers back up at John_Hickman12 on Twitter.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody COTYDAVIS_24. We will get back to our mock draft, ladies and gentlemen, but there's just so much stuff been going on over the last 48 hours with this organization. We had to put it on the back burner, but we will get to it before the draft in 2 weeks. And around this time, at the time of this recording, at 7:26, in the next 2 weeks, we will know, one, who the Houston Texans selected at number 2, and 2, and most importantly, who is running the show. The D'Amico Ryans or Nick Caserio. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.